Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good. Your background makes me smile when I see it.
I know I always look for it. I'm like, okay, I need the Christmas cheer.
Yeah, it's good. It's working.
It
It's working. Does it work for you?
does. It
Let me see
does.
it. Yeah, good. Good, good.
Are you excited
Yes.
for
Yeah,
Thursday?
do you want to share what you're asking about?
For Thursday?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I love Usher. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. I don't know if you got my text. I know you're super busy. Um, but hey Miles,
Hey,
I wanted to well what you'll see the
Oh,
text.
yeah, I'll check. So just so that you guys know what we're talking about, Jeanette and another friend and I are driving down to Miami Thursday to go see Usher. So it's gonna be fun.
Awesome. I'm so excited.
Yes. So we're excited about that. It was kind of a last minute make it happen little trip. So a little throwback, Usher. I
I
gotta
love
start
that.
playing more of the music too. Are you guys Usher fans by any chance?
Sure. It's fine.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
hmm
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like I'm not like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to be at the Usher concert, but it's like I know it'll be fun. We'll have a good time. So anyway, all right, good to see everybody. Michael let me know that he has, with his new job, has a like an orientation meeting that he might not be able to be here. It's like, I'm trying to get out of it, but I don't know if I can. So he may or may not join us. So we can just go ahead and get started. So we're gonna just switch it up a little bit from normal. We'll do a PQ rep in just a second. Um, so doing first a check-in. If you were to, if a friend said to you, how are you doing, but how are you really doing? How would you respond today? So we'll start with you, Miles.
like how how I'm really doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I would say pretty good. Um, like I'm pretty good because I think we're approaching the holidays and the challenges that I was mainly worried about are kind of past, and there hasn't been any kind of like resist too much resistance. So in my life right now, so it hasn't been too much adversity for me to say or feel anxious, even though I know it's coming up. But yeah, so I would say pretty good.
That's good. So normally, like in a normal year, when you know it's coming but not here yet, would you feel differently? Or is
Yeah,
it
if honestly, I could speak for my future self. Like for my future self, my wife is going on a girls' trip to Iceland in February. Um, and then right after that, like a month later, we're going on our anniversary trip. But and we're gonna be driving down to like Orlando twice. Um, although like it's great stuff, I'm getting anxiety just for like her going on a girl trip and me with the baby. And then just I just get anxious when you start traveling a lot back to back. It's just a lot of logistical things involved, so I get anxious with that.
yeah, good. Well, hopefully using some of the PQ tools can help to, it's not that this is the way that I describe it. So I just had a call last week with one of the corporate teams that I'm working with, and they finished the 7 weeks and now they're just like back into kind of normal routine. And we met again, and one of the people was like, listen, I totally see that my stress level is lower. It isn't because nothing else has changed. Like my life is the same, my job's the same, my home life is the same, everything's the same, but I'm responding to the stressors differently. So then I'm different. And then one of their coworkers said to me, oh my gosh, I can see the difference. I can see when I work with them. They've always been good to work with, like they weren't a problem or anything, but now it's like a joy to work with them because they're more like they're showing up more excited about life. So, and this is somebody who was feeling skeptical along the way, like, is this going to work? So I just want that to maybe be an encouragement because I know there's like that can happen. And I felt the same way when I started this journey of like, I don't know if this is going to work. It's kind of like what I've learned already. I already know this practice, but like just continuing to do it anyways, there was still a payoff. So, you know, keep using those skills as you notice the anxiety coming and see if that helps you respond differently to the same scenario. Good. All right. You pick who shares next.
Jeanette.
Okay, sorry. How am I really feeling? I'm pretty good. I'm excited about the holidays. And I don't really anticipate a lot. It's going to be pretty, you know, obviously besides this trip that we're doing, it's going to be pretty chill for the next month or so. That's pretty much it. Right now, I'm really grateful for the holidays. I'm grateful for the slowdown. It's that time of the year where nobody really knows what day it is or what day of the week. So it's good to just have a slow time and reset. My son will be off from school, so I'm just really grateful for some slow down time. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, Gina.
I'm exhausted. I've been sick for a week, and so I'm just like barely coming out of it. And so it's just been hard to do anything than sleep for a week. And it's been kind of stressful because I have so much work to do to get done since this is our last week in the office. And so I think it's just like piling up in my head. And so I was hoping to like get out of there with some things done. And instead, there's like this giant pile, and my brain still isn't like 100%. And so I'm trying to go to meetings, and it's like I can't even remember what they're saying. like I'm just not responding very well yet. That's awkward. So yeah, but I feel like I'm just exhausted. Like I feel like I'm just resigned and exhausted right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, getting sick always throws it off because we're going full steam ahead and there's no space. Like, we're not like anticipating a hiccup in that of like, I can't actually physically do the things that was planning on doing. And so thank you guys all for sharing. And, you know, one invitation around all of this, and I know that you're probably doing this already, so hopefully it's just a reminder, but if not, also an alert or like a, hey, all of like, no matter how we're feeling, you know, we talked already about like the judge and like, who knows what's good or bad and how we respond to things versus trying to control things. But every life situation, no matter how we're feeling, if we're on the top of the mountain or if we're feeling like we're in the biggest slump, there's always that invitation to be like, okay, where might my saboteurs be adding to something that is already stressful or could be more joyful or whatever it is? Like, how might they be impacting this very real thing that I'm experiencing? And that the awareness of where those can be, you know, playing. So like think about, like Miles, you're talking about feeling anxious about what is to come. And Jeanette, you're looking forward to of like, well, I'm so glad that I'm going to finally have like downtime, right? Like, so you're anticipating what's going to happen. And Gina, you're like, oh my gosh, I had this expectation of being here. And now I'm not where I expected to be. What's going to happen? So those are all very normal chances for our brain to be like, and add to the pressure or the stress, or say to us like, hey, I can only feel at peace because my calendar isn't as busy, or I can only feel less anxious once the traveling is done, or I can only feel better when I have done all the work and it's behind me. What if there was another way? What if there was a way to feel less pressure in the process? So even just pausing and asking yourself those questions, whether or not anything changes. Again, remember, one of the big focuses here is to get off of autopilot. So anything you're doing to interrupt autopilot is helpful, even if you're not quite to the change that you want to make yet. Any thoughts or questions about that? All right, so just a couple of housekeeping things. So thank you for responding about finding an alternate date for next week. So I polled everybody and changed the calendar invite to be next Friday. So what that will mean is we'll have 2 meetings fairly close to each other. So next Friday is when we'll meet, and then the following week we agreed to just keep our normal time. So we'll meet on Tuesday. So we'll meet on Friday and then again on Tuesday. Makes sense. So the invitation went out, I think it's 1:30 on the 27th for next week's session, so that everybody can enjoy holidays and all of that, and then we'll come back together. And then if you have not yet booked your one-on-one time with me, please take advantage of that. Miles, I'm going to message you because I think I might need to shift our time because of this going to Miami. So I'll message you and see if we can find an alternative.
Sorry.
Well,
a legend.
it's possible that I might be back, but I also don't want to, like, if something happens and we don't get back by then, I don't want to be like not focused for our time together is basically.
No, it's understandable. Isn't Miami though?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in
Man,
Miami. So
my wife wanted to go to one in Vegas like a few weeks ago. Not a few weeks ago, like a month ago. But there was so much else going on, and then with our budget, I was like,
yeah.
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 He
Yeah,
thought
this
that
will
was his
be
last performance, but no. But yeah,
well,
I was just wondering.
he's all week this week. Today, tomorrow, and Thursday. So want a last minute trip. There you go. Okay, so let's do a little PQ and ground in here. So today, let's do, we're going to do a combination of tactile and breathing. So go ahead and close your eyes. Sit up straight if you can. And first, using your sense of touch, I want you to just take one hand and rub it along a fabric that you're wearing. And when you do that, pay attention to all the different sensations, both how it feels to the hand that's feeling and then the skin underneath the clothing. Pay attention maybe to temperature, sensations, just see what you notice. And then maybe take your hand and run it along just bare skin. And notice the difference in how it feels versus when you're feeling the sense on the clothing versus bare skin. Whenever your mind wanders, just bring it back. Knowing that that's actually building your PQ muscles every time you bring back and practice self-command. Now you can rest your hands back in your lap or wherever is most comfortable. And now focus in on your breath. And as you breathe, notice the sensations as your body shifts. So as your chest expands and contracts with your inhale and exhale, maybe you notice how the breath in or the breath out makes your body shift differently. Maybe you notice all the different parts of your body that move as you inhale and exhale. Your mind wants to wander to something else or evaluate or skip to the next step, just bring it back. Practice self-command. On your next inhale, I want you to take a really deep inhale and then hold that breath. And as you do that, pay attention to all the sensations in your body as you inhale and hold that breath. As you're holding the breath, notice what parts of your body tense up, what parts of your body relax. Notice one part that feels like it's tensing as you hold that breath. And then when you release your breath, pay attention to all the sensation as that part releases and relaxes. Great work. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. So just following up from the week of Empathize, want to check in and with blameless discernment, think about your practice in this last week, particularly around empathy. So, how did you practice empathy? Like, what went well about practicing empathy, and what could improve about your practice of empathy? And remember, we talked about empathy can be that whole range. And so, you guys identified like where you need some improvement with that empathy last week. And so, that might be the focus for this week. How did that go in your practice this last week? Blameless discernment. So, there's no judgment here for yourself or for others. Just want to know, like, how did that go? What went well about your practice with empathy and what could improve? So I'll start with Gina.
What went well? That I did it every day. What could improve is that I don't remember anything because I've been sick. So I don't remember. I remember him talking a lot about love, of self and others and body. But I don't remember very much. I think being sick is like my super kryptonite because all the feelings that I've been holding back come out. It's usually me crying about being lazy. And so my poor husband has to deal with me crying that I'm lazy and horrible. And he's like, why are you doing this? I feel like this would have been a very good week to practice this, but it's just like all shields are down and I was just a lump. So I think this could be a good uh, curriculum to go back to and revisit.
Yeah, it's a great self-observation, and also very like those messages that come out in that space are very like it's such a good um lesson is not the word I'm looking for, but like spotlight to be like these are actually probably a lot of the driving messages when you're able to just kind of keep moving and be like, oh, everything's fine. But when you're sick and all of that is like, oh, nope, I don't have any energy to like hold up the pretend that I'm not thinking these things. It's just all down and now it's all out, like very indicative. So even taking note of like some of it I know that you know, but if there was anything that really stuck out to you of like these were the like the inner messages or the feelings that I was having while I was sick, because those are likely also things that are normally strong, but just you're able to hold them down because you're feeling good. And so you can have the energy to be like, nope, it's okay, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So good. All right, who shares next?
Miles.
Um, so for what I did well this past week, I think empathy for myself. Um, yeah, I think empathy for myself. I help improve on just, remembering the better qualities. Um, I think what I need to improve on is like specific kind of empathy, like in a particular moment when I'm feeling like impatient or whatever, specifically like for others at that time, not necessarily um irritated with them, but just irritated with the situation that's going on right now, and then finding myself irritated and lacking impatience on them. So
Yeah.
I think something of that nature.
Yeah. Do you have an idea or a thought about what that practice might look like given what you learned and practice for self empathy?
It's for me, it's like a in the moment it feels like sometimes like a dire situation. Sometimes like when I feel the most impatient about a situation. Um, but in cases like that, I think the first step is just recognizing it. I recognized it later, so that's already a self-improvement. And then kind of thinking on what I can do next time. And next time is like I recognized it. I mean, next time I would recognize it, but then probably take a pause. That's just going to take some time for me sometimes because it's a situational thing. I don't necessarily feel it right then and there. But yeah.
Yeah, so great work, like, recognizing it after the fact. And then, another practice to try is like revisualizing that same scenario. So
Mm-hmm.
some of the things you can think of when you're revisiting that is like, okay, if I was just observing, where would I notice my first kind of like trigger happening? It's probably not the point in which it felt super frustrating. There was probably, other things. So thinking like, if I could go backwards, where might I notice that first time that I started feeling impatient? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was going on? Like, it's just like you're just exploring it, just like we'll talk about exploration. Like, you're looking back and going, what are the different angles of this same scenario that I may not have noticed because in the moment I was in my feelings, right? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
look, come on, what's going on? Right. But now you can go back because the feeling has died down.
Yeah.
You're not feeling impatient in the moment. You can go back and think about it. And then you can visualize like, what might I do differently? But you're right, all those steps, even recognizing it after the fact is great. You're interrupting like that pattern. So great work.
Thank you. Jeanette.
Sorry. So in my process of catching up and patting myself on the back for trying to catch up and not being so down on myself, like you got to be up to date with the class, like get it together. Oddly, I did have a moment where I journaled it and I wrote it down in the app too, where I was feeling empathy for myself, but also for my son and how we both receive each other, because I always feel like I'm answering the question wrong. Let me just keep going. So, my son's on the spectrum, and with him going to therapy and ABA, they're trying to instill ways for him to be independent and to communicate, but at the same time, he still has a limited language, and he might interpret redirecting him as disappointment. And that's not something that I want him to feel or to project, and the anxiety that we both get from both of us not understanding each other's language can be really something that instead of being hard on myself or saying it was a divorce or all the back and forth and he's over here and over there, it's just being like, when he's with me, this is what I can do. This is how I can control it. So that not that everything is zen and woo woo, but just little by little, this is just how I can show him that I don't know if the word or the phrase is it's going to be okay, but just if I can be his biggest example, then he can then also learn how to communicate. So I'm not up to the empathy thing, but my journal was speaking empathy this whole week from this session. It just really all hit me, and I'm really grateful for this process because I feel like it's really gonna end up being really beneficial, especially in our relationship. Yeah.
Thank you,
So-
Jeanette. I just want to celebrate you for catching yourself right in that moment where your inner voice was being like, oh, you're answering this question all wrong. And you were not answering it wrong, but your brain wanted to. So first, just like, seriously, congratulations on stopping it and being like, no, hold on, I see it. I know that that's happening and I'm just going to keep moving forward anyway. And where you got to was a really beautiful space. When you stepped out of the judgment of yourself and like assuming you were doing it wrong, which you weren't already, but then it got even more poignant. I think your answer is like, here is where it is, whether or not that really is relevant. It's making a different life to think of and have, and in that interaction with your son. What?
Is she breaking up for anyone else? Oh, okay. You were breaking up a little bit. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for letting me know. Hold on. Let me just make sure that our connection is unstable. So I was just saying, like, great work. And then am I okay now? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Also in the relationship with your son, mirror neurons, like when you're anxious, he's going to pick up on that you're anxious. So when you calm yourself down, doesn't mean he's not going to be anxious, but it's not going to magnify his anxiety, right? So that's an incredible piece. Like if you learn how to self-regulate your own anxiety, that has huge impact. That would have huge impact regardless of neurodiversity. So you add on to that he's on the spectrum, and it's really because he's highly sensitive to like what's happening energetically around him, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Great work, everybody. Did you have any questions or aha moments that surfaced during this week's practice? So we'll go backwards, start with you, Jeanette. It sounds like you just shared a little bit of like.
No, pretty much, that's it. I want to get to a space where, he can just express if he's, tired, not in the mood or anything, without feeling like if I go against what she's saying or what my therapist is saying or what my teacher is saying, then I'm not doing it right. What am I doing wrong? And I can only imagine how he says it in his brain, So that to me was an aha moment where I was just like, I can curate a world where he can just express it and not be afraid of, if it's wrong or right. It's just him, I don't know. I know that's
How
super.
beautiful.
Everybody send me an invoice for therapy at the end of this.
But it's no, I think that's a beautiful thing. And also then the self of like doing that for yourself, allowing yourself to be able to have whatever emotions you need to have and whatever feelings you need to have. How can you curate that space for yourself too?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Right. Who do you want to have share next, Jeanette?
Gina.
Question. I mean, it's more like a concern that my noticing powers could ever combat, or my empathy powers could ever combat the giant that is judgment. like we went somewhere for like out to lights with my husband, my in-laws, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, and it was just like beat around family. There's a lot of judgment of others. So I would try to catch it, and then it was like David and Goliath. Like it was just like, haha, that's cute. And then it would kick it aside and judgment galore. So I don't know. It feels like a big muscle to try to build.
That's legitimate, and it is a big muscle. The practice, it also can feel very like oppositional, because the work that we're doing are like really small, tiny practices, and you're looking at Goliath. You're like, this is like not even putting the stone, like this is like a pebble in the, in my slingshot. Like, how could this pebble make a difference for this giant? I don't think it's going to work. So even that is a saboteur coming in and being like, yeah, just like, you know what, just don't even, why bother? Why even bother? I think about I don't like this analogy, but people use it all the time. But like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Like that's the same thing. Like really, it is one pebble at a time. How do you defeat Goliath, right? It is one small thing. So even noticing it, even if you go back to the same behavior, in that moment, practicing like non-judging of yourself, like, hey, I noticed it. It's okay that I went back to it. At least I noticed it. Making progress, like recognizing that those pebbles are changing things, just not at the speed that you prefer. Right. Yeah. So, but can you guys hear me okay? It's like a tech day for sure. I don't know why my headphones ran out, but anyway. Yeah, like that feeling of like, I don't know that I'm ever gonna, make this big thing go away. Maybe thinking about what are the smaller pieces of that, like what could be a smaller piece. So like even in the example you're giving, part of what's happening is there's a dynamic of like, this is how our family communicates. there's judgment here. It's just how we are all doing. So even if you're trying not to do it, if it's happening around you, it's hard not to mirror that, because that's the dynamic, right? That's the construct in which you operate and your family operates. Is that how, like, do people connect based on judgment?
I think so. I think everyone has their roles, and I think that now I have all those like hyperachiever, people pleaser, like I have them all in my head, and now that I can see them, it's just like, oh my God. Like I think it just is challenging to be around that. And so I just am trying to be quiet and just let them do their thing. But it just, yeah, I guess that's
So one thought, this is, a practice of like trying to explore that, use the explore power that is part of this week's practice of like, how could you look at that same scenario from different angles? So the current scenario is, oh my gosh, I have so much, their saboteurs are so strong and my judgment is so strong and so natural and so just there and big. I don't think I'm ever going to get through it. Like, what might be the other angles? Like, that's one part of the elephant. What if you looked at the other side, or what if you were, having a different perspective? What else is in that same scenario also true? So like the story of the elephant, where like if you're feeling the trunk versus the leg versus the tail versus the ear, they're all part of the elephant, but you're going to think it's different based on what you're focused on. So that same thing, like, okay, so my current scenario says this is an insurmountable task. It's just too big. I'm too far gone, not possible. What other perspectives might exist? So thinking about that, just even letting your brain explore what might also be possible in the same scenario.
Okay. Miles?
All right. For this question, I think I don't remember really having anything. Not that I don't even really remember. And like even right now, I don't think I had anything specific that I can think of, like what questions or discoveries surfaced for you during this week's practice. Um, the only thing I can think of is just working on my situational patience. I mean, that's the only thing I can really think of that a discovery that I made at this moment. There was probably something else I just can't remember.
Yes, which is normal. It's normal to be like, oh, a lot of things happen and I don't remember what they are. One thing I will definitely encourage you guys, if you're not already doing it, this is not meant to be like an obligation, whatever, but I would encourage you to use, there's like a journal at the end of every day, the daily practice. So if in a day you have a discovery or a question or like a light bulb moment, just go in and like put it in there for that exact reason. It's not because I want you to feel like you have another task to do, but it's because we'll forget. And your saboteur brain is going to come in and tell you all the things you didn't get right, or all the things you don't understand yet, or whatever. But if you have something concrete that you can go back to and be like, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't know. Also, some things become more normal for you as you do these practices, and you'll forget that there once was a time that it wasn't normal to notice your judge or to take a pause or whatever. But when that's a new practice, if you note it, it helps you to have something concrete to look at so that you can say, oh, these are actually the things that I've been learning and growing, or here's a question that I have. So if you have a question and you come into this space, you can remember to ask it, versus like leaving the call and like in 2 days going, oh yeah, that's right, I meant to ask this thing and I forgot, right? It's normal. So that's a tool that you could use that's just already in the app. You don't have to do something extra, and then it's accessible anytime that you want to go look at that. So, all right, great. These are all really great discoveries. So just do a quick review. The SAGE perspective is that idea that everything, no matter how big, can be converted into some sort of a gift. And that doesn't mean that we are like, oh yeah, that was so great, I'm so glad that happened. But gifts come in many forms. It can be a gift of knowledge, a gift of strength, a gift of action. There can be a lot of gifts that come out of any scenario. And then the explore, thinking about like, these are two of the SAGE powers that like right now you're learning kind of the basics of these. There are 5 sage powers. You're learning a little bit and practicing a little bit of those powers so that you have tools to come back to. It's not meant to be like by the end of our 7 weeks of this that you're going to be like, oh, I'm an expert at all of these things. You probably aren't even going to remember what the sage powers are specifically, and that's okay. But just being in the practice of like, okay, I wonder if I looked at this a different way. Could I use one of the sage powers, especially when you're feeling stuck and something is difficult? But in general, thinking about, so explore is around like looking at what else is possible. So that's like the story of that elephant. So like what else is possible in the same scenario? How else could I look at the same scenario? And innovate is really about generating solutions. So explore is looking at what is and different angles of what is. Innovate is about what's possible. So both of these are powerful tools that help you to navigate forward. It's easier to access any of the sage powers when you are building that muscle in your brain consistently through PQ reps. So you're not just waiting for an adverse scenario and then expecting your PQ brain to kick in and be like, okay, fix it. But if you're building that brain regularly, so think about your physical body. If I want to be able to, when I need to, lift a really heavy item and move it across the room, I'm going to be more likely to do that if I'm building my muscles slowly over time and being consistent, right? Versus like, I went to the gym a month ago and got really strong, and now all of a sudden I have to lift this heavy thing and I'm not ready. My back isn't ready, my arms aren't ready, my legs aren't ready because I wasn't practicing. So your mental fitness is the same. Practice by proactively doing self-command, proactively building those PQ muscles so that when you need it, it's easier to access. Your sage is always there. It's just easier to access when that part of your brain is strong. Okay. So one of the big things too around, this is new in this version of PQ, and I think it's such a great addition, but when you're thinking about facing a scenario, something that's frustrating. So Miles, like this would be a great practice when you're faced with feeling impatient. In that moment, you have a chance to decide, right now, I'm frustrated about this. Can I decide right now to accept this for now? It doesn't mean like if there's somebody's behavior and they're always running late and they're not respecting your time, like let's say that that's a repeating pattern. Accepting for now isn't saying like, oh, for the rest of time, I'm okay if they're late and making my day terrible. What it's saying is in this moment, do I want to either accept it for now so that I can put it aside, or am I in this moment deciding that I want to try to convert that into some kind of a gift? Either way, it's taking the pressure off of doing your saboteur responses. So accepting for now is a really powerful tool. Sometimes you'll come right back to the thing later on and you'll be like, okay, I accepted it for then, but now I got to come back to it. You might be surprised how often when you decide in the moment to say, I'm going to accept this for now, how often you never think about it actually again. And you're like, oh, now you have something in your brain to go, you know what? Normally I would have gotten really upset about that thing. And because I accepted it in the moment, I realized like 24 hours have passed or 48 hours have passed and I didn't think about it again after that and everything is fine. So maybe the next time I don't have to respond my old way either, right? You're building some new responses. So the same with like being sick, Gina, like in the moment of like, okay, I can continue resisting what's happening, which is that I'm sick and I'm not at full capacity. Or could I accept this for now and just accept that this is how it is? What would that look like? Right? So that in the moment, you're not also trying to fight what is. Because if you're sick, right? I know you're magic and you can do a lot of things. I haven't heard that you have like a healing wand or something, because if you do, you should be sharing that, right? You're just human and you're going to get sick sometimes and not be able to control that. Any thoughts or questions around any of these, the sage perspective, these 2 powers, or accepting and converting? Okay. All right, let's get into our discussion here. So the questions are, what is an example of the sage perspective in your life? So a bad thing that turned out to be a gift. That could be something currently, that could be something that's happened in the past. But thinking in your life, the example of the sage perspective, something in your life that seemed bad, but turned out to be a gift. And then what did you discover from the sage perspective contemplation? If you did that contemplation, also a reminder, if you can't quite remember, if you are answering the questions as you go through modules, you can look in the app and look under the, like where it asks you to respond to questions, and you've already then answered these questions. What did you discover from the sage perspective contemplation? And then what are some recurring situations where you feel stressed, upset, or unhappy that you are going to take an opportunity to either accept for now or convert? So let's start with Miles.
All right. So what is an example? For the first question, I think the first thing that popped up was the school I went to. Like when I originally graduated, the first school I went to, there was one college I wanted to go to. I didn't get in, but got into another college, and it's the reason why I met a lot of people. I mean, I met my wife through one of my roommates, who's also the roommate that I'm help making videos for. And then just the actual experience. Um, but yeah, I think that's one thing. Um, I think so what I discovered from the sage perspective contemplation, um, I recognize um what I got from that is that not every negative emotion or every negative thought at that moment, that's like when your saboteur is coming through, that has to be resolved, particularly at that time. It's something like what you mentioned before is accepted and then tensed up, or and resolved later. And it doesn't always have to be converted into something. 'Cause um, sometimes there's not really a direct way to convert it, except for just, if anything, an indirect way. But I just learned that there's not always an answer, um, but or like a problem to solve. Um, so what reoccurring situations where you feel stressed, upset, or unhappy that you will now accept or convert? Like I mentioned before, um, my wife is a big traveler. And it seems like there's always like certain times of the year where we're doing a lot of traveling, and I get antsy. Like I'm a like southern hometown guy, and she's the opposite. She's New York from the Bronx, travel around the world. Uh, um, so that it's I'm used to just taking one vacation a year. During my childhood, she travels to different countries, but so that's something um that I feel like I can convert. People always tell me like look on the bright side, and it's hard to look on the bright side, but I think well, at the moment when you're really angsty, because the bright side is that you're taking a great vacation and everything, and not many people get to do this, and you're experiencing new things. I think I think just learning to convert that with my anxiety in general, not just with traveling, but just in general, can help. And I think that's where a lot of my impatience stems from. Not necessarily because I'm directly being impatient, because my anxiety is telling me I need to get this done, which makes me impatient. So
So, one possible perspective, you can think about like that convert, remember gifts are multiple. So gift of knowledge, gift of strength, gift of action. So it's not just like, oh, I found like, I feel better about it, right? But like thinking really practically of like what fits for you, right? You're right that taking this great vacation is great and other people can't do it or whatever. But if that doesn't matter to you, it's going to feel like you're forcing yourself to just be like, just be grateful, like just be grateful for this. But really thinking about like something that matters to you. So for example, even thinking about, okay, this is actually an opportunity for me to work on reducing my anxiety. And that's going to be good for me in lots of ways. So every time that I feel anxious, instead of resisting it, I'm going to lean into it and use these tools I'm learning. And that would be a great gift that matters to me. That's just an example that may not be what you want to choose, but think about what kind of conversion would matter to you. Oh, I get to have like quality time with my family where we're all everybody else is more at ease and I'm really connecting with them. And that's really important to me. So that's my focus versus all the things that are difficult about it, right? So finding something that matters to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Miles. You pick who shares next.
Gina.
I apologize. I didn't do any of these, and so this is gonna be me coming up with it. I always have a hard time with this bad thing that turned out to be a gift. I don't know how much I believe this in life. I feel like you have to like go so far high and like out. Um, I think the only thing I can think of is more from my dad. My dad is a second generation steel worker. When I was growing up, he worked in the mill. And then in 97, they went on strike because of bad conditions. And so, like, we were out there, like, with picket lines. And so he lost his job. And we were, like, getting boxes of food for Thanksgiving from, like, the union. Like, they took care of everything. And so it was, like, a very memorable time in my life because it's just, it's a weird thing. And I remember we got Christmas gifts, like, people donated to buy us Christmas gifts. And I remember writing a thank you card that said, like, thank you for helping us in our time of need. And my dad got so mad. He's like, our time of need. He threw it away. Um, but then the union paid for him to go back to school. And so he got his degree in teaching and he became a fourth grade teacher, which was, even though it was really hard, in its own way, it was like way better. And my dad is one of those people who like absolutely loves children, like loves teaching them, loves being around them, just like exudes joy with kids. And so I think that ultimately was a good thing because it forced him to see his life differently and like be something that was more aligned with who he was versus like following in the footsteps of like something that was there. Because I think with the mill, when you have a mill town, it's there. And if you need a job, you go to the mill. And I think that's easier to do than like to actually search inside yourself and see what you like inside could be. So I think that turned out like in the long term to be a gift.
Yeah.
Um, I don't, what is the sage perspective contemplation? Just thinking.
So that's part of, if you didn't do the videos yet, don't worry about that part because it's
Okay.
part of that. So it's one of the activities we'll do in the modules. So you can skip that one and just think about recurring situations where you feel you might accept for now or convert.
Yeah. I have a lot of these because I feel like, especially in the holidays, I think hanging out with my in-laws, I think that there are just certain people that you don't jive with. I don't know. And I feel like there's like, sometimes there's something that like clicks something off in me and I don't like it because I feel like I want to be either neutral or positive, and I don't especially like family, and I don't want to be like that. And so I think that maybe I'm trying to like I don't know what I'm trying to do. I think maybe I try to ignore those differences, but they still like pepper up and I don't know how to like tamp them down. So maybe it's just like accept this is how they are and this is just how it is. Or maybe convert it. I think I try both of these in these situations with these people because they are very nice people. It's just like, you know, how some people's peccadillos like hit apparently against your like anyone else it would be fine. It's just like some things and it's just I don't know, it's just so weird. I don't know why. And it like very much frustrates me because it's like it's your family. You should be happy to see each other and to hang out. And instead it's like my eye is twitching the whole time. So I think that maybe I will just try to accept. I don't know. I feel like I bounce back and forth with these trying to like help with this situation. And
If
I
it
think it
was
doesn't
going
make
to be
me
convert, what would you want it to be converting to?
like this is a
what
nice
gift?
person. Most people, 99% of them love being around this person. They are kind, they are generous, they are like a good person. What is wrong with you, Gina? Why can't you like I think that's
No,
this
but
is
like,
where
so what it like, it's the same like I was saying with Miles too, that that's a truth, right? That
Mhm.
this is happening, right? That like where people are saying, hey, you should be so appreciative because you get to go on these trips and not everybody gets to do that. That's true. Like, yes, not everybody gets to do that. Yes,
Mhm.
these are nice people who are good humans, right? Like that's
Yeah.
true. And it's also true that right now they irritate you and
Yeah.
the relationship is not how you'd want it to be, right? You don't feel relaxed and comfortable just being around them. You feel like on edge. You feel like, ooh, ugh, you're grating on me, right? So the
Yes.
interaction is not what you want it to be. They're both
Yeah.
reality, right? One does
Mhm.
not take away the other. You being irritated doesn't mean like they're bad people or you're bad because you can't, you're thinking they're bad, right? You're not thinking they're bad. You're thinking there's a, this is what I used to say in dating too. Like if it was like not working, I'm like, this is not, I'm not like judging you. I'm judging our compatibility. So what's
Yeah.
happening now is the compatibility is off, right? What you would like from that scenario versus what is being offered is not the same.
Mhm.
So what would be the gift in exactly like nothing is changing, but what could be a gift? Like what would you even want a gift to be in the scenario of my in-laws are not who I'd want them to be, even though they're good people?
I mean, I think this is all convert like that I have in-laws at all that
What is good
they're
about having in-laws? Like what is it like? Is it like, oh, what I want to think about is the good parts of the relationship because relationship matters to me. Like what matters to you?
yes, having people around, having that connectivity, having family. I think all of those are important to me.
So
Um,
like like learning, like practicing like what it feels like to accept when other people are not like you want them to be, but you still appreciate who they are. Like
yeah.
if you could navigate that and not get it perfect your first try, but like if you could practice that, where else in life would it benefit you to have that ability to be like, I can accept who you are and appreciate the parts that are good versus focusing on what I don't like. Where else in life would that serve you?
I think just mostly with family. I feel like I don't have this issue so much with work. I think because there's a different power dynamic and I can leave. Like there's no like there's a with work it's just like this project is contained, you know, and even if you don't have to hang out in your pajamas and watch movies with, you know, these people or you, like it's a different environment. Um and so I think just mostly with family it would help a lot because I feel like this comes up a lot with family because I feel like a lot of times their family isn't aren't your friends. You don't choose your family. And so like you're expected to have these like conversations with people who, if you're like with friends and you can like actually get into it and like enjoy and like, but with family it's very different because they're, you know, coming from different perspectives or like just completely different. So I think that is where it would help me out the most.
What would be a like one example of a payoff? So like it would improve those relationships. What would feel better about it to you?
I guess I just don't want to spend that time while we're together with this like judge in my mind. And I just feel like it's just a constant. I keep on trying to like say like that's the judge, like be quiet, be quiet. And it's just like everything this person like is just like in my head. And I think it just very, I think and it's also an opposite to what I am. So if I'm a controller, they're like the ultimate in people pleaser slash mediator. And so all I could think is like, man, this person doesn't even have a personality. They're just like waiting for everyone else to speak so they can mediate. And like that's all I could think about is like, who is this person? Why aren't they like, who are they without everyone else? Like, and so my brain is just trying to like figure these things out instead of just like, let's just think about something else. Like let's think about books or I don't know, whatever, dogs.
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
to
for
really help
sure
in
that
that
except for
situation.
now, I think will help get to the convert. So like the ultimate goal is like I would love to have time with my in-laws that I'm not always in my head and not like everything that happens all pinging in my head like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? Like I don't want to be thinking that because I want to actually be present. And maybe if I'm present and not in my head, that means I could have a more genuine connection, which is actually what I'm seeking. Right now, it feels like I can't have a genuine connection because we're so different. And I'm looking at them and judging them like, you have no backbone. Like, who are you as a person? I can't authentically connect to somebody who doesn't even know who they are. Like, there's all kinds of stuff happening, right? But what you really want is to be able to feel at ease and connected to these people that,
Yeah, I think that's it. I feel like the connection isn't genuine because I don't know who these people, like everyone, I think, and some of them have like people pleaser as a secondary, but when they're all together, it like amplifies to the first. And so basically, you have a group of people who are just like bouncing their personalities and are reacting to what someone they think someone's going to say instead of what they're saying. So there's like so many levels of conversations that aren't happening. And it's just like, because everyone's trying to make each other happy. And I just try to stay out of it, but it's just very like, this is horrible. Like nothing's
yeah,
getting done. No one's saying what they really mean. And so it's just like a very weird, non-genuine. It doesn't feel genuine to me. And I think that's what I'm responding to is like, I don't know who you are as a human because like everyone else you take on their wants.
yeah. Yeah. And so the accept part is at the core of it is like, I'm accepting that the way you show up in the world is this way, that who you are as a person is malleable, that who you are is, dependent on what people around you, like that is who you are. And that is actually, if that's who somebody is at their core, that is their genuine self. That's the most genuine that they can be. Like it's hard to, from the outside perspective, when you've done work and you are identifying your own, like, who am I really? And you're doing things to like shed the stuff that isn't you. It's hard to be around people who haven't done any of that and are probably not willing to do any of that kind of work. It's way too uncomfortable. It's way too vulnerable. Like, I'm going to just pretend when I'm with this group of people, like they might also go home and be like, ooh, it takes a lot of energy to be around family because in some level I'm hiding too, right? I'm not presenting who I really am. And they might also feel frustrated and but you're not going to have those genuine conversations until that first barrier is removed. So that accepting for now, like every time, just the thought of like in practicality, like every time that you're presented with a behavior like that, to be like not trying to be like, stop judging, like not that either, because that's also just increasing your saboteur activity, but just like, okay, I'm going to just accept that this is who you are in this moment. I'm not going to try to add anything else. I'm just accepting that in this moment, you are indecisive and people pleasing. And that's who you are in this moment. This is who you're comfortable showing up as. And it's not my responsibility to change that or to like it. I'm not saying you have to like it, but it's just accepting it. And then that practice might help get easier to the convert part, which is really, so what you're saying is what I'm really looking for is connection. Connection can't happen when judgment is high in the middle.
Yeah.
Separates
makes
versus
sense.
connects. Yeah. Cool. Right. Jeanette?
I don't want to make the meeting go too long. I'm obviously not as far into this module yet. But I guess similar to what I was talking about earlier, and maybe just a little bit deeper, you know, I guess something bad that turned out to be a gift was, and I don't want this to sound like callous because my friends know I've been on tour crying for like the last year, but you know, my divorce and the perspective that I've gotten from being alone and working on it and just losing one big thing, but then gaining so much has been like a really, really huge gift for me, you know? And then I guess the recurring situation would be the frustration of still speaking to that. And then similar to, I guess, when Gina was speaking and then Kelly, when you were putting it in perspective of like, it's frustrating to speak to people that just don't want to meet you as deep as you've met yourself or anything like that. And just be like, you know, just be alone, figure it out, like go within, open it up so that we can communicate on a level that it just doesn't feel so guarded. But, you know, I guess the recurring situation that stresses me out is that. But what I was saying earlier with my son is just something that I want to convert, that I don't want to project that energy or that frustration onto him, which I try not to, but it's hard. Like I said, the closed captioning, it's all there. It's not on me, it's in me. And I'm just really trying to convert that. I don't know about accept, but I'm trying to convert it so that I can just transmute it into something with better energy. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and the convert too, thinking about like just to my earlier statement, thinking about like how could this also be a chance for you to you're not just creating the space for your son, but also for you, like identifying in ways that you couldn't before because of the gift that you just talked about, right? So now it's you get to decide what is it that you need, like what would help you, because you know the pattern of when your son is frustrated and how it feels and what's, you know, like all of that. I'm sure you can think of multiple scenarios where you've had that happen. Be thinking about what would help me the most in that scenario to show up the way I want to show up for him without negating that this is hard for me, right? Like, what do you need? What do you need in that scenario so that you can genuinely be quelling your anxiety and showing up genuinely, because he can read things that you're not saying, even if it's not on your face. He can read it more than maybe another kid could.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for all of your sharing. And then, you know, just encouragement. Remember, for sure, keep up with your daily practices. That's the most important. And then go back if you are missing any of the modules. You'll have a little bit of extra time to catch up for this one, and then it'll be a short turnaround between the next one and our meeting after that. But we'll see you next week on Friday. We're talking about Activate next week. So Activate is a really incredible superpower as well with the Sage, especially great for avoidant, hyperachiever, stickler. It's really good, especially for those saboteurs, for all of them, but really good for those as well. So, all right. If you need me in the meantime, just feel free to ping me. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Feel better, Gina?
Yeah, feel better.